We're now looking at buying it. We went from 10 people signed to 459. That's not just me. We have a lot of really dedicated people. Another one back here who happens to be a former professor at the University of Eastern Michigan and then a lecturer at the University of Michigan, moved up there, and he's probably the only epidemiologist north of Saginaw, which he reminds us of all the time. But we have 2 or 3 people that have taken on the chair. Deborah Honor, who's also now one of the vice presidents of the Michigan Democratic Party, and we have 60 of those people in our organization that have signed up to be in the MDP. We've done that not by statistics or anything else. You can't hide. In our area, we're very red. 34% of the people in our area are over 65. We only have 20% of our population between the ages of 18 and 44. Work it out. It doesn't fit very well from a demographic standpoint. There isn't a lot of money. There's 34% of the housing is vacant. In the collar counties that I would call Iosco, Aranac, and Alcona, and Dan will know this better than anyone, it's probably a terrible stepchild for the state. Very few people ever even come up there to visit. They talk about going up north somewhere else. The state of Michigan, for example, we're arguing that point now, the development fund for the state of Michigan, you average about $550 a county per person per capita. In Kent County, Grand Rapids, it's $800 and some dollars. In Washtenaw County, the same. Iosco County, and we're the rich county of those collar counties, 71. That won't even buy you lunch. So there's a lot of work to do. So instead of dealing with statistics and all of the other stuff and trying to rail against the red wave or whatever you want to call it up there, we just started to be people and invite them. Not one big meeting or one big dinner, but 2 or 3 fundraisers and meetings every month. We hold different meetings. We hold just getting together and talking. We will have walleye dinners where we go out and catch the fish and do it. All of a sudden, and downtown, if anybody's been there, you know we're right in the middle of the town, which is very upsetting to our friends on the other side. They've tried to buy our building 2 or 3 times, but our landlord will not sell, thank God. She's from Vietnam, and an immigrant, by the way. And she has never raised our rent in 7 years, which is, I'm kind of happy about that. So we went from about $1,000 a year. This year we'll raise about $65,000. And what did we do? We told our story. We tried, Richard and I went to the local newspaper, and we tried to offer our services to just write, not op-eds. We were going to do it nonpartisan, even though we are partisan, but we were just going to write on what is a socialist, what is communism, what is liberal democracy, what is republicanism, what is a republic. 90% of the people don't know. And just offer them a column in the local newspaper on a weekly basis for no fees. We would just write. He said no, didn't want to know. So from that, we created our own writers group and guild. We have about 13 people, 14 people that write. I focus on the emotional side of it, I guess you say. I write verse or poems. Richard writes a lot of stuff on medicine, and he sends a almost weekly letter to Jack Bergman, which is rather less kind. But we found all of a sudden that resonated with people, that instead of dealing with stats, dealing with trying to argue, dealing with hashtag whatever, if we just meet them as people, they will meet us eventually. It's hard. I'm not saying that we're going to elect people. We may lose better, but we did elect the first county commissioner as a Democrat in 40-some years. And things have turned around. And I guess what I'm trying to say, and I'll end there, is just the story. Be who you are. And the last story I want to tell is the migrant person. I wrote a poem about a migrant's hymn. The difficulty that those people face of being between two worlds. They have an arm in this world and an arm in another. They're bridges between their children's freedom and future and the oppression that they left. They're lost. They're very scared, but they didn't leave out of fear. They left it with courage. So I wrote this poem on how they're feeling and the notion of ICE and all these things. And one of their young daughters read it somewhere. And Ashley's 18 years old, and she wants to go to the University of Michigan and study law. And her mother does everything that she can. And her mother's incredibly bright from Vietnam. But be that as it may, she's only good enough here to do people's nails and toes. Her daughter read this and then came to me later and she said, do you have something for the 4th of July? And I said, well, yeah, I've got some things that I put together like that. So she read another one. And she said, if you don't mind, can I take that and make a scroll out of it? And at the 4th of July parade, hand it out to all of the people in town. And I said, well, no, I don't mind. I mean, what do you want to do? So she did that, an 18-year-old girl. I thought that they would throw them away, that we would have all of this paper that we were now going to have to collect. Richard was driving the truck, so he knows what I'm talking about. And they put a little scroll and wrapped this thing up and tied it with a ribbon and went around a parade 3 miles with I don't know how many people, 3,000 people, handing out this poem. It wasn't on the ground. We didn't have to pick it up. So what I would like to end with is that poem and then a poem for you. And whatever happens for the rest of this evening or that happens in the future, I mean, I know 250 years ago we wrote this thing. Somebody talks about unalienable rights. Most people don't even know what that means. And he also said that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Not that those are the only ones. We wrote a constitution to protect. Our government is based on the notion of protecting individual liberty and expanding human awareness and opportunity. It's in the Declaration, which is our heart and soul. It is the first lines of our Constitution. It has nothing to do with efficiency or operations or expediency. They wrote it for accountability and the expression of human existence. It was supposed to be slow. It was supposed to be hard. It was supposed to be deliberate. Because this is the first time in the history of mankind, and this is why we're the only liberal democracy or republic that has ever lasted this long. Only one. They all fall apart. It's the only one where rights, the purpose of government was to guarantee your right to exist, to be who you are. You didn't have to earn rights. You didn't deserve them. You already had them. No government has ever been based on that until the Constitution of the United States. So I know that there's arguments on whether or not it's this or that, or whether we should go back to its core. And I tell you, my opinion, I'm going to let the politicians argue that. But we can't forget our soul. If we forget why we were created for the purpose of efficiency, we are no longer what we were or what we promised. And that's where I'd like to read the poem to you. This poem I wrote in March of this year, and it happened to be called The Tears of Liberty. I've lived long enough to remember when kindness was not weakness, when mercy was not shame, when we knew what we were and were not afraid to say it. Now, I sit on this porch older than I ever thought I'd be, watching the republic I love fold itself into something I no longer recognize. And I think of her, standing in the harbor, green and patient and worn, her torch held up, not as a weapon, but as a welcome. I know what was promised when the promise meant something, when the light was not just decoration, but direction, a guide for those crossing the dark waters of uncertainty toward a hope they could not yet see. Her crown holds 7 rays, one for every continent, for every shore that sent us someone toward the light they only hoped was real. And at her feet, the broken chains, shackles split and fallen, left there one by every soul who passed, setting down what had bound them as the offering at her feet. A million quiet surrenders to freedom, guided upward by the light above. And in her arm, the Constitution, the keystone that binds our humanity, law carved not in arrogance, but in humility, a covenant written in hope that the gate shall not be shut and the light belongs to all. But now her shoulders tremble. Salt water streaks her ancient face, not from the ocean winds, but from something deeper, the slow erosion of a promise we made to ourselves and are quietly breaking. I am old. My hands are maps of everything I've touched. I have held crying children, buried good friends, planted trees I'll never see grow tall. And I know this: humanity does not advance by turning inward, by building walls around frightened hearts. It grows the way a tree grows, outward, always outward, reaching towards the light, a guide for those still stumbling in the dark. She's still there, you know, still standing in the water, still holding up the torch, still waiting for us to remember what we said we were. Her tears are not weakness. They are the last record of everything we promised and have not yet kept. I see them from this porch. I have no more words, only the watching and the hoping that someone younger than me will look out at that harbor and remember what we swore we would always be. Thank you.